Brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
They got after it. They knew what they wanted to accomplish, and they were very, very focused when it came to it. You saw that whenever our practices started. We understood what we wanted to do. Now, there were bumps in the road along the way where we had to remember who we were and what our identity was. But once we figured out who we were, once we knew who we were, we believed it, and things were pretty good from there on out.
Coach Casey Korn from the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh returns to the Hoopheads podcast to talk about winning the 2019 Division III National Championship. The Titans, led by head coach Matt Lewis, went 29-3 en route to capturing the title in Coach Korn's first season as an assistant at Oshkosh. In this episode, Casey takes us through the season and gives us a behind-the-scenes look at a national championship season. If you can help us out by leaving a 5-star rating and review in iTunes, that would be much appreciated. Those ratings help other members of the basketball community find our show. We hope you enjoy this national championship edition of the Hoopheads podcast with Coach Casey Korn from the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel. And tonight we are pleased to welcome back to the podcast Division III National Champion Coach Casey Korn from Wisconsin Oshkosh. Casey, welcome back.
Well, I'm not going to lie, that national champion portion of the intro sounds a little bit better than the last time I think we did it. So
I think it does. Yeah, I definitely think it does. Well, we left off with you the last time. You were about to take your squad to play the Big Ten Wisconsin Badgers. So let's go back.
Let's just say your tournament ended a little better than theirs did.
Yes. You guys didn't they adequately prepared you for tournament basketball. You apparently didn't adequately prepare them, I think is how we look at it.
Yeah, we probably needed to step that up. So that was on us.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about what that experience was like. I know we talked about it on the podcast when we had you on back in the fall, and just how you were anticipating the opportunity to go up and have your kids get a chance to play against those Wisconsin kids.
When we first walked into the Kohl Center, I think it was like November 2nd, something along those lines. Having this podcast the last time, we talked about the story from moving from the high school ranks to the college ranks. And I'll be honest, when we did our shoot around out there, my eyes were wide. You look up there and, this is an arena. This isn't a gym. This is an arena. And you got the scoreboard that goes all the way around, and it was just something that you just kind of looked it up and you said, "Wow, this is pretty neat. This is cool." And Coach Lewis, Matt did a great job. If we walked in and we got some shooting, and he pulled everybody together, and we looked around. He goes, "Guys, you get about a minute." He goes, "You get 1 minute to take this in." He goes, "And then we're going back to our practice gym in Oshkosh." He goes, "This is where we're going to be. We're at Albee Hall. All right, this is what we do." And so we all kind of took a minute in, and we got to our shoot around, and we got real focused, ready to go. And it was kind of that Hoosiers mentality where the basket's still 10 feet, but it was. The cameras were on us during shoot around, and it was just a cool, surreal experience there. And then we got to actually go out and compete in the game, and we were really excited about that opportunity, and we understood, and I think we talked about this the last time, is we understood that the Division I basketball, it's a different level. There's a reason why there's different levels, but our kids wanted to go out and they wanted to prove that they could belong on the floor, and I feel that we were able to do that. Our goal was to win as many of the 4-minute segments as we could, and there was a nice run towards the end of the first half where we took some quick shots that didn't fall, and we turned it over a little bit, and Wisconsin went on a run on us. But overall, we left the locker room. You're never happy about a loss, but we felt that we got better, and it was a great measuring stick for us for turned out to be a very successful season.
Do you feel like that had something to do with the success that you ultimately had across the season, or do you feel like that was just kind of a one-off thing that, was a great experience, but maybe didn't have a tremendous impact on the season? How would you characterize that particular game, particular experience there playing against the Badgers?
I think the game in general just gave us again, like I said, a measuring stick. the Badgers were ranked in the top 25 in the nation most of the year, and Ethan Happ is an All-American, and they get some other really good basketball players. So we wanted to go out, and they wanted to compete at the highest level. But I think maybe more importantly is the experience was great for us. Anytime that we have found out that they made the big made obviously a nice run this year, but anytime that we could spend together as a team was just beneficial. So we went out there and we stayed in a hotel that night, and we had it lined up that we were just going to do our practice back at the Wisconsin practice facility, and they had a game at Camp Randall, a football game that we weren't going to go to, but we were going to take in all those sites, and we were doing whatever we could just to spend more time together as a basketball team. And I really believe that kind of kicked off what we wanted to get accomplished this year.
So over the course of the season, what were some of the things that you did do beyond that game to get your team to come together outside of the normal basketball activities of practice and road trips and things? What were some of the activities or things that you may have done to bring the kids together to really create that bond that you need in order to be a championship team?
We got a great group of guys, and they are friends. And obviously you're not always going to get along, and not everybody's going to be best friends on a team. But it's amazing the different groups within a team. And with our group, that changed every week. You had your couple guys that would go off and hang out a little bit more often than others. But if you had 4 guys together from the basketball team, they were sitting together if we ever saw them at lunch or those type of things. So that's a huge piece of it. It's just guys that liked being around each other. We had great teammates. But we had any home game, we always had breakfast. Saturday home game, we always had breakfast at the local place down the road, which was great for us. We had every opportunity we could to do team meals whenever we were doing film sessions. We did a couple activities, especially later in the year, just kind of, goofy little, things where you have to step out of your comfort zone, and not in the basketball sense, just in the life sense. And we're telling stories and some of their best experiences at Oshkosh and some of their high school experiences. And, sometimes those things got way off the track of what we were trying to get accomplished, but having 23 or 28, I don't remember how many by the time you had managers and coaches in the room, but just laughing at one another and with one another was just, those are the things we are going to remember. Obviously, we're going to remember holding the trophy at the end of the day, but I am currently in this position because Matt Lewis, who was my college teammate and one of my best friends, we shared something special, and we became great friends throughout this. And then I started coaching, he started coaching, and he asked me if I wanted to join on board. And those are the type of things that will always be remembered, is those relationships.
Yeah, the relationships are key. I had a question about something that you mentioned there, talking about how some, you might have a group of 4 that's hanging out one week, and then, this group kind of gets together. And how aware of that are you as a coaching staff, or how much time do you spend maybe talking about what, I don't want to say clicks in this case, but just, do you monitor those kinds of team dynamics off the floor? Like, do you notice as a coaching staff who seems to be getting along? Who are you monitoring those kind of interpersonal relationships within the team as the season goes along?
I think you realize it as a coach, who likes each other and who doesn't like each other. Who's hanging out on weekends with one another. It's not something that we forced by any means, because like I said, our guys really enjoyed hanging out and being together. But we pay attention to it, and then we have a lot of our individual meetings once a week. We'd have guys come in and we just talk. Sometimes it's about their class schedule. Sometimes, that's not always an easy conversation either. We're telling them, hey, we need to get our butts in gear, but we had good guys who didn't have too much to worry about that. But, hey, what do you, what'd you do this week? And who'd you hang out with? Things like that. And, our senior leaders were a major part of this. They came in and they would do whatever they could to get the freshmen involved. And from day one, they would invite them over to their house to watch college football in the fall. And after weight training, they would all go together and they would all eat. And, just from that, just being together, those experiences, I can't say enough about what our seniors did just to tie everybody together.
How motivated was the team coming back from the experience they had the year before, and how motivated were they to get back to where they were on the brink of the title the year before, and how much of a mission was it to get back and win it this year?
It was a goal. It was the goal to get back and a little bit of unfinished business. A great crew coming back. They lost a couple seniors, a couple nice pieces to that team, but a lot of the main parts were coming back. A lot of the scoring was coming back, and so they had a great off season. At Division III, obviously we can't work with them. So whenever I got hired in May or June or whenever it was, we stepped on board and they had their open gyms and we just stayed away and they ran them from the time I walked in until our first day of practice on October 15th. Those guys are doing all of that on their own, and they're lifting 4 days a week, and they're having open gym twice a week, and they got skill sessions a couple times a week. And so they got after it. They knew what they wanted to accomplish, and they were very, very focused when it came to it. You saw that whenever our practices started. We understood what we wanted to do. Now, there were bumps in the road along the way where we had to remember who we were and what our identity was. But once we figured out who we were, once we knew who we were, we believed it, and things were pretty good from there on out.
Yeah, I would think at the Division III level that developing those players that are leaders is critically important because, as you said, the coaching staff can't be involved in those workouts and things in the off season. And so you're really relying upon the leaders within your team to make sure that those off-season workouts and open gyms and lifting sessions and whatever else they may be doing are geared towards really pointing towards that, that final goal that you have of getting back and win the national title. So how important was it to have those guys that were your leaders on your team that get you into that season ready to go right from the very beginning?
I can't express how important that was because, like you said, we can't touch them, we can't force them. It's on them. Now, this is the part that I've kind of fallen in love with, and I mentioned this last time about Division III basketball, is players are going to gravitate towards leaders, and that's part of what we need to do in the recruiting process, to find guys that want to be competitive, that want to work, that we're not knocking on their door at 6 a.m. to get them out of bed and get them into the weight room or wherever it would be. That's 100% on them and their teammates. Sure, you're not going to want to get up one day or you're going to want to go do something else, but the leadership, the people that are around you are going to drag you in. And I mean, I believe they had to have bad days. There's probably days where they weren't happy about getting up and going to those different things. But for the most part, these guys really enjoyed playing basketball, and that has a lot to do with the leadership. And and it's not just one guy. And I talk about our seniors were great, but we had a kid. He was going to be, I think, a sophomore eligibility this year, and he hurt his foot again. And we were looking for him to possibly play some major minutes for us. And he got hurt, and he was down a little bit, but he's a point guard type of player, and he would pull kids in extra, get extra work in, and just 100% bought into, what, I can't do it this year because I'm in a boot, but I'm going to help this freshman, and I'm going to help this sophomore, and I'm going to help this junior do whatever they need to do to really excel for our team this year. And I can't say enough about these kids.
Yeah, that's a great thing when you can develop that kind of camaraderie and the great teammates like you just described. That's something that I think happens, one, from the leadership of the coaching staff, but it's also a testament to those kids themselves, because in a lot of cases, coaches can preach something, but unless the kids themselves believe it and buy in, you're not going to get the situations like you just described where somebody is selfless enough to realize, hey, I have an injury, but I can still contribute and be a part of building something great. And that's just, again, a testament to those kids that they were able to do that. As your season starts and you go to game 2 and you play against Mr. Aston Francis, who's averaged 35 points a game this year, and you lose that second game of the year. Give me your recollection of that game and sort of what that did for your season at that point.
I'll talk about it in two instances. Number one, as a team, we played in a tournament out at Wheaton, and that was a championship game. It was a 4-team tournament. We won our first game, and we were going to play the host school, and you have 12 real hours of turnaround time. Now, we had a scout. That was my scout, and so we were prepared, but by the time, you have the guys in there and you explain the game plan and doing this on back-to-back nights, which you have to do in the tournament, but it was our first go around doing it. We had a pretty good idea and a pretty good plan, and, we just didn't quite execute. We didn't quite hit shots at the rate that we were capable of making shots. If you look back at the box score, and I think we lost by 12, but I think we took 20 more shots than in that game. We did a really good job on the glass, especially on the offensive glass, and we didn't really turn it over. We just took some quick shots, early shots that we could get at any period of time, and they just weren't falling. And we didn't quite make that adjustment necessary. And obviously, they had him, and they have some other good basketball players, and we weren't able to keep them off the scoreboard the way we were hoping to do. And so we walk away with a loss, starting the year 1-1 after you have all of this on your back. You have this pressure of, just coming off the national championship, and, what are you supposed to do? And I think the guys handled it wonderfully. We talked about focusing on today. That was another Matt Lewis thing, is he said, hey, we're not focused. We want to be here, but we got to get better today. And all we would constantly talk about is getting better today, and what are we grateful for today, and what was successful today, and not looking down the road. But on a personal side, we're 1-1, and I just joined this coaching staff, and this is my first scout, and at the collegiate level, and we lose this game, and again, we were ranked 2 to start the season, and we knew Wheaton was going to be a good team, but I'm sitting back there on that bus ride back and heading back to the hotel, and my hands on my head. I was like, what did I do? How did I screw this thing up? And going back and watching film, and we're dissecting it, and I didn't know, man. I was going a little bit crazy, and I know that's what coaches do. I get it, but I was like, what do I got to do better? How can I, fix this problem? Is it my fault? And obviously, I think it was a good game plan looking back at it, and with a short period of time to prepare. But still, when you don't know, I was freaking out. I'm not going to lie about that.
Yeah, I can totally see that, especially going in and that being your first time for being responsible for the scouting. And here you have this team that's, obviously expected to do great things and eventually did do great things. But in that moment, all you can look at is you are what you are. You're a 500 team that's 1-1 that just lost. And I'm sure that was a little bit disconcerting. And to your point, as a coach, you always take things, I don't know if harder is the right word, but you obviously take things very much to heart, and you're very much invested in the results of what you're trying to do. And so I can see where at that moment in time, as you're riding in the bus and you're sitting back in the hotel room and you go back to your house and you're trying to analyze and figure out what it is that you need to do, or what it is that, you did do in order to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And luckily for you guys, or thankfully, you did end up getting another chance to play them, and we'll get to that eventually. But just if you think about it in that moment, when you ended up playing them again, do you think that the fact that they had beaten you once, did that in any way help you think, in that eventual Final Four matchup?
I think just in general, both teams had, we were familiar with one another, which is, a positive, I would say, probably both ways. When you're playing a kid is with the ability to score as much as Francis had, it's nice to be able to show clips of us guarding him rather than watching him play in his conference games or the other tournament games. So when we went back and we watched as coaches, we watched a lot of we watched almost every game of them go leading up to that Final Four game, the rematch. But when we showed our guys clips. We showed our guys us versus them. So,
right.
hey, this is how we guarded him last time, and look what happened. So this is the adjustment that we need to make. Look, this is a good time. This is a time we did it correctly, and look what happened. Or, this is a time we did it correctly, and look, this kid hit a step back 25-footer. Yeah, okay. You shake his hand and say, that's one heck of a shot, man. You just don't foul him. Don't give him 4. If he's going to take 3, that's fine. Don't give him 4. So those were really good for us, having those clips with us watching us. I just think it makes our guys lock in a little bit more. And then, there's always a revenge factor, and our guys had been in that position before, which is great. But there's always, hey, we gotta take care of business this time. And I don't think they were overlooking us whatsoever just because they beat us one time. Probably gave them some confidence, but I really believe it helped our guys say, all right, let's lock in. That's not going to happen again.
Yeah, to be able to watch a film where you're actually playing against that same team that you're going to play, I'm sure was helpful. And obviously, hey, you were able to hold them to one less point when you played them the second time. So
I will tell you the kid can score the basketball. It was impressive, and I will also tell you that I can't be more proud of the two guys. We had two guys pretty much just sleep about him the entire week. Say, hey, this is your job. This is what you guys are going to do. Don't do these 3 or 4 things. And they bought into it. And, they were going guys that probably played a little bit more minutes during the run. And we just kind of split them 20-20 in that game because we needed them rested and they knew what their job was. And I thought they did just a wonderful job, guarding him. And I know he still scored 40-something points, but there was nothing really that easy about the way he scored his points.
What was the game plan? What did you try to do to slow him down?
He's so good off of screens, and they run a 5-out motion. So we were not necessarily going to give him 2s, but we were going to try to make him curl into our bodies and really stay on the outside of them. And on the flip side of that is we could not foul him. He was so good at getting space, and people were so concerned with getting into him that he would shoot, sometimes 12 free throws a game, and a kid that shoots 95% or whatever he shoots at the free throw line, you don't want to give him those free points. So if he did get away from us at the 3-point line, let's not jump and be crazy and contest a shot. We wanted to stay on our feet, and we wanted to make him make tough shots. And I just thought just our positioning and where we were at and our other guys knowing where they could help. We had our center guarding their point guard at some period of time just because he could clog the lane and their point guard didn't shoot the ball. It's great. He was a heck of a player, did a great job around the rim, rebounded it, led the offense. He just didn't shoot it quite as well as some of the other guys. So we just said, all right, let's keep him and let him affect plays a little bit. And, again, he scored 40-something points, but overall, I thought we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it did enough to neutralize him to be able to give yourselves a chance to get the victory, which is ultimately what it's all about. As you think back of the totality of the season, was there a moment or two where you really felt like the team came together and it was a galvanizing moment that sort of put you on a path to get to the national title game, or was it just sort of a slow build where the momentum kept gaining and gaining, and you felt like, hey, we're really have the kind of team that can get this thing done?
The game after Wheaton, our third game of the year, it was that Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and we did not come out and defend. And offensively, I think we scored 46 or 47 points in the first half, which is, tremendous. But we are a defensive-minded team. We scored over 100 a couple times on the tournament run, but we are a defensive-minded team, and we spend a lot of our practice focusing on that side of the basketball. And Matt would not have it any other way. But we were not competing at the level we needed to compete, and he challenged those guys in the locker room. I guess it was our third game to really go out and really compete on the defensive end, and we didn't finish. So we ended up finishing the game with a win, but we didn't quite, we weren't where we needed to be, and we kind of went back to basics after Thanksgiving, and that actually game kind of started. I think we won 20 something in a row, a school record of consecutive wins. and we were beating some teams, some really good teams, by some pretty good margins because we were holding teams in the 60s, and we had some talented offensive players that could put the ball in the hole. But when we bought into the defensive side of the ball, we were a really tough team to beat just because of, we had so many options on the other side of the floor.
Talk about some of your individual players. I know you had Ben, who made first team All-American, and then you had Flynn, who was the most outstanding player of the Final Four. So can you talk a little bit about just some of your individual guys and their contributions and just what it was like to be able to coach players of that caliber?
Well, to answer that last question, it's awesome. It's unbelievable. Coming from the high school level, and I really enjoy this side of it as well, but where you're developing kids from the bottom up, where you're working with kids from third grade up, and we talked about youth programs. I love seeing those kids grow. However, when you walk into that practice and you know that we're still going to build off of your fundamentals, but these guys can execute those fundamentals. You can always get better. You can always improve. You can always, get better with those habits. However, when you got guys that know how to execute what you're trying to get accomplished, now the X's and O's and the strategy and those things become a little bit more into play. And I really enjoyed that this year. And Ben was an extension of us on the floor. Ben knew what needed to be done when it needed to be done. He knew when he needed to go. He knew when he needed to defer to his teammates. At times he would ask to guard one of their better guys. If he had foul trouble, he would take on that task. He was just he could do anything we wanted him to do. And the crazy thing about Boots, and I'm so happy that he is a first-team All-American, because in a different program, if he went somewhere where he needed to shoot the ball a little bit more often than he did with us, because we had some other talented people that could score, he could put up some pretty crazy numbers, and he didn't need that. He wanted to win above all else, and that's a characteristic that is going to be missed, and it's just hard to replicate. And the other senior that we had that played a bunch, Brett Witchow, kid shot over 40% from behind the line. He was one of the guys that could just create. We asked him, especially early in the year, to guard the other team's best guard on any given night, whether that's a kid that can get to the rim. He was the kid that guarded Francis the first time we played Wheaton. Whether it's a kid to get to the rim or a kid that could stroke it from the outside. He was so good offensively that we may have hurt him a little bit, asking him to run around, just constantly chase the other team's best guard. We kind of made that adjustment a little bit whenever we changed our starting lineups a little bit later in the year. But, he again, another kid that could just do a little bit for you. Jack Flynn, we talked about Jack. The other thing about Jack that you don't know is he's the absolute nicest kid you've ever met in your entire life. He's 6'8", 260 pounds of just teddy bear, because when you're around with him, he's just smiling and he's cracking jokes and just a great human being to be around. But whenever he gets on the basketball floor, I felt bad for him, because it's hard to officiate Jack Flynn. So much bigger than most people, especially at our level, that he's getting bumped and ridden, and when he's going up to finish, and people are just kind of walking through him, and he's coming out, he's like, "Coach, they're hammering me." It's like, "Jack, I know, I can't say anything. We're trying. I promise, buddy. We are trying." and he just like, "All right, I got it, coach." Like, he never got too frustrated about it. And then on the other end, same thing. He's just a big guy, and he'd bump somebody and he'd get a foul called on him every once in a while. But
did you ever tell him he was the LeBron James of your league, or no?
Never let him know that. We just call him our stretch five, a kid who never hit a three, but he always, every day in practice, he'd want to get one up. We're actually heading to Spain in a couple months here. Every couple years, you get to take your team to overseas and compete, and so we're going to head to Spain. And when we kept joking with Jack, it's just like, because he said, "Coach, we were up one game, 25, and he goes, "Coach, if I go back in, do you care if I shoot a jump shot?" Like, he was seriously asking me that question. I was like, "Jack, if you keep getting 15 and 15, you're getting double-doubles every night. I'm not going to yell at you for jump shots. Just don't tell Lewis I told you that.
There you go.
But
now you got it on the podcast though, so now you know it's a record up here.
Yeah, we had a good year. I can tell. So hopefully I'm safe. But you said we told him we'd run the first play for him in Spain to try to knock down a three. But Jack Flynn's just a great kid, and I don't always shot from the free throw line, but he got fouled a bunch. He's constantly going to the free throw line. He's shooting high 70s, 80% from the line. Adam Fravert, another 6'8" kid, kind of played our four-man, but he shot 40% from behind the three-point line. And, he was our big athlete that if we ever ran a lob, that was the kid we were running lobs to. And he can get up and just hammer some stuff. And, Fravert is a unicorn at the Division III level, just with his size and athletic ability and the way he can shoot the ball. Last year, apparently, again, I watched him last year, but I didn't really look at numbers. But, people would play off of him to try to help off on Jack inside, and they would kind of leave Fravert around. So he really worked on his game this summer, and he shot over 40% from behind the arc. And, just having a kid that can do all of that, and then he could guard a guard for you, or he could guard a center for you, and he could clean up your mistakes on the defensive end was great. Two kids kind of that really came on for us. Connor Duax was kind of our backup four last year, and this year kind of played a wing and also our backup four-man, kind of a 6'5", 6'6", strong athlete. He kind of turned into our defensive stopper. And the next thing you know, in our Sweet 16 game against Loris, he tore up and scored his career high 25 or something like that. So, something just great. And then we brought a freshman in this year, Eric Peterson, who, if you look at his stat sheet, you might not say much, but he was the best, one of the best defenders I saw all year. Just he could guard. He's 6'4", had really quick feet, great hands, great instincts. We were very confident putting him on anybody we needed to. And there were just, I mentioned those six. You got other guys constantly down the line. Wherever there's a kid, Tommy Border, we call him Moose. In the Loris game, the Sweet 16 game, Jack Flynn gets 2 fouls in the first half. His backup, Brian Willman, picks up 2 quick fouls. Another backup, they would split some time, picked up 2 more fouls. So our 5 men had 6 fouls, plus Fravert had 2 fouls. So we had 8 fouls with all of our bigs there. And so we went down and we had another kid come in the game, and I think he dove on the floor and got 3 loose balls for us, a couple rebounds, had a little up and under move, and finished, and just gave us an unbelievable 7 minutes to close out a half where, we didn't exactly know what we were going to do. We were talking about, who do we risk with 2 fouls, and he came in and just was able to plug the gap for us. And that's what this team was. They understood what their role was. They loved being around each other in practice, and whenever their number was called, they didn't shy away from the moment. They were ready to go.
Registration is now open at www.headstartbasketball.com for this summer's Head Start basketball camps. We'll be hosting camps this summer in Strongsville, Westlake, Avon Lake, Oberlin, Brunswick, Highland Heights, Mentor, and Hudson. At Head Start Basketball, we care deeply about making a positive impact on the lives of young basketball players, both on and off the court. It's through building strong relationships with our players, parents, and coaching staff that we are able to use the game of basketball to enrich the lives of those we interact with, both inside and outside of our organization. We believe that our attention to detail, our growth mindset, and our commitment to lifelong learning allows us to help our players achieve their fullest potential. We are passionately committed to providing players, parents, and coaches with everything they need to reach their goals. These core values run through everything we do. Check out our website, www.headstartbasketball.com, and discover why you should attend a Head Start basketball camp this summer. Hope to see you there.
How long did it take you to kind of feel like, I don't know if you were accepted is the right way to say it, but how long did it take you to get the trust of those guys that had been there for, a couple years before you got there and obviously had a tremendous amount of success? When do you feel like you really had a handle on those relationships with the guys?
They accepted me day one. They never questioned anything I ever told them, from camps over the summer to, I was bossing them around. We had our big team camp, whenever that was, and I was like, hey, you need to go over here. Half of them didn't know my name. And I was telling them what they needed to do or where they needed to go when it came to like that stuff. And not one time did any of these guys ever question anything I asked them to do. And I actually said that in our championship huddle at the end when we had the trophy and we're finally back in the locker room. And that's what I said. I said from day one, I can't believe that you let an outsider walk into this team, and you guys allowed me to coach you. I said, at least to my face. I don't know what was going on behind my back.
Right.
But to my face, they absolutely bought into me saying what I needed to say. And, I think that's a testament to Matt of how much respect they had for him. Because, he brought me in and said, hey, I know this guy and, you should listen to him. I think that's what he said. I don't really know. But I was blown away about that. And so on the flip side, it took me a little while to be comfortable on what we needed to do, what I needed to do, what my role was. We talked about last time is I was a high school coach. I was a varsity coach my entire career. I've never been an assistant. So I walked in this year as an assistant coach, and when do I speak up? When do I keep my mouth shut? What exactly does my role need to be? And obviously we have those conversations as a staff of what, your responsibilities are, but, are you the guy that needs to pull a guy over and remind him what was just said? Are you the guy that needs to get in a kid? Are you a guy that needs to, pick a kid up whenever he's down? And, the one thing that I feel I do a decent job of is understanding people, is reading people, to know that some kids you can get after a little bit, and some kids, they don't respond that way. And some kids you need to, just constantly build confidence. And when I kind of learned our guys a little bit, I tried to do whatever I could to help that learning process with them, whether that was kind of give them a suggestion, make it their own suggestion. Hey, maybe you should try this. Maybe this works for you. Or on the opposite, hey, no more of that. Do this every single time. And the kids, the guys bought in.
Was the ability to be able to focus on basketball all day, describe that adjustment from going, obviously in a high school situation, you're not focused on basketball all day. And when you're at the college level, you're able to put a lot more time in. I know we talked about how much you enjoyed the process of planning practices and actually being on the practice floor. So talk about what it was like to be able to focus on basketball all day, every day, as opposed to what it was like when you were coaching a high school team.
In the fall, I thought this was crazy that I got to do this full time. This is a full-time position, and I couldn't believe it because I just didn't quite grasp how this worked, because I was used to, again, teaching 7 hours a day, and then you were doing whatever you needed to do. And then whenever the season hit, when we started going to practice and all that stuff that you're talking about, we talked and we had these conversations of what we needed to do. I've never watched so much film in my life, and I love watching film. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it, how much I learned from it. I have a playbook of every team we played and all of their best stuff and all the stuff that they run that we have for our scouting reports. And, just the library of my knowledge has been great. It is, you don't think, because you still, obviously the season is a big time for us to recruit. And so we get in the morning and we kind of plan our day, what we need to get done for that day. And whether that's we're sending letters or making phone calls or, planning practice or watching film, whatever we need to get done to that day, we would do. And, after practice 3 or 4 nights a week, we would hop in our cars and we would go watch, a high school game. And then we get home at whatever time, 11 o'clock if it was far away, 9:30 if it was close. And, we would go do it again that next day. And it was just, you're immersed in it. And it was something that I've always wanted to do. And I wanted to figure out if I enjoyed it enough to continue to do it. And I realized that answer is yes. This is what I love to do. I love being around this game, and it's given me so much and so many friendships, and I just want to continue to learn and give back to the game of basketball as much as I can, and to these guys and these players, because they're just, such great dudes. And that's the other thing that I was really worried about moving from high school to college is, you knew these guys and you got a relationship at the high school level, and sometimes you saw them come up through your youth programs and, succeed to pick their college and where they're going to go. And I was really worried about, do you still have that impact on their lives? I'm a teacher first, as much as I love saying I'm a college coach, and you're still a teacher, and part of that teaching mentality is just making sure your students grow and you can support them in any way you can. The difference is you just have 19, or we had 19 guys this year. I didn't have 40 guys that I was really watching over. I had 19. So just the bond and the relationship that you could create just became so much deeper with the amount of time that we spend with these guys. And that's something that, I didn't quite realize was going to happen. Matt told me it. I didn't really buy it, but it is something that, it made this experience so much better.
Yeah, the amount of time that you spend together, I'm sure, increases the bond between player and coaching staff compared to the amount of time that you're spending at the high school level. I think that that's one of the things as a college coach, it's got to be tremendously gratifying, and it's obviously gratifying as a high school coach as well. But anytime you can build those kinds of relationships that, here you walked into a situation where, you're with a bunch of great players. You don't know going in whether they're great guys or not, but you find out as you go through the course of the season that not only do you have great players, but you have great guys. And that's a bond that, you guys are going to look back on this first season and you're going to be 60 years old, 70 years old, and you're going to continue to have that bond because of not only the success of the season, but just because of the relationships that you built. And I want to jump back to more of a technical question that you talked a little bit about, and that is, how much film you said you watch a lot of film. How much film are you watching on a typical, let's say, week, or in a typical prep for, let's say a league opponent? How much tape are you watching on that particular team?
Is the answer too much acceptable? It very different for me maybe than somebody else, because I walked in and 7 out of the 8 programs had the same coach, and having the same coach, and obviously, so I guess 6 because Matt was new this year, but he was with the guy previous to him. He was with Pat the 6 years prior to that, and so we didn't change. He was part of that philosophy. He was built into what we were doing. So there was only one new guy in the league. So playing everybody 2, possibly 3 times a year, you have a very good feel for what the other teams are trying to do. But whenever you walk in and you know nothing about anybody, then you don't have that feel. And so even when it wasn't my scout, I tried to watch as much as possible, trying to figure out, what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. It all depends on the team. Obviously, in the tournament run, we were watching everything that we could watch. We were watching a lot of minutes of film between the couple of us that were focusing on those scouts. But I would say if it was a team that would be a motion offense type of team where they're a little bit more just kind of free flowing and setting screens, and they just didn't have too much of a pattern, I would just spend a lot of time watching synergy clips of personnel, trying to figure out, what each person does well. When are they taking their shots? How are they getting their shots? Which hand are they driving with? And so on and so forth. You just spend so much more time with personnel. With teams that run a lot of sets, well, now you're diving in and you're trying to figure out the motions that they're running as well as the personnel. And, even then you're trying to figure out when was the last time they ran it. And do they do certain things on baseline? What do they do late clock? What do they do late shot clock and things like that? So Teams that ran a little bit more sets were a little bit longer scouts, I guess you could say, just because there was just so much more that you needed to do. But on the flip side, we always felt that we, had a pretty good feel of what was going to happen in those games. So.
Two more film-related questions. One, how much film do you watch of your own teams? How much do you go back and watch your games? And then two, how much of the tape that you end up watching gets shared with the players? So how much time do the players spend watching film with you guys collectively as a team? Not that they couldn't look at it on their own, but as a team, how much time do you guys spend going over the film with your team?
I'll watch every game that we played. Obviously, the next day, it's really nice. Again, Synergy can make things simple for us. Obviously, that's broken down similar to crossover, huddle, and some of those things. So you can flip through one of your games pretty quickly. If it's a team, so for example, if it was one of the league teams that it was my scout, I would really dive into our game against it. I would be picking out every clip that I could pick out that we might possibly show before our next game. Things that we did really well, things that we did poorly, other teams' personnel, other teams' sets, sometimes our sets, things that we thought would work the next time against them as well. And so I would really dive deep into those. Sometimes when we would be playing like back-to-back nights, let's say it wasn't my scout. My scout was at Saturday. We play Friday and Saturday. And let's say if my scout was at Saturday, I would spend a lot less time. I would just kind of fly through the Synergy clips whenever they were up. I wouldn't dig as deep into it, but you always like to know what we're doing really well. The other nice thing is we have another assistant on staff. Ben Stelzer's his name, and Ben is. I share an office with Ben, and we've become very, very close here in this year. And he just does a tremendous job of, he does a lot of our player development stuff, and he watches some of the individual film with guys as well as doing some of the scouts and things along those lines. And he does a really good job. So we bounce a bunch of ideas off of one another. We'll show a clip. Hey, what do you think we need to do here in our motion? Is this timed up right? Do we need to talk about this, or is this something that, just kind of questions like that. As far as players, early in the year, we will watch film every single day, whether it's practice or whether it's a game, whether it's an opponent coming up that we're going to watch clips from, or whether it's ourselves. We would watch film every single day, whether it was 7 clips or 15 minutes early in the year. As the year wore on, I thought that was something Matt did a phenomenal job of, is understanding where our guys were with their bodies and how they were feeling. And so, once we hit conference season, we play every Wednesday and every Saturday. It's just like clockwork for 7 weeks, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. And so some of those Thursday film sessions were a lot longer. We said, hey, we are going to have a mental day today. We're going to spend 35 minutes in film today. Take notes. Let's really focus on that. And then we're going to go upstairs and we're going to do, a short on the floor stuff, whether it's walk through or whether it's just get up shots or however that's going to work. So once the season got on, we would watch a little bit more film and probably be on the floor a little less as that went through.
Got it. Makes total sense. Again, as you go through a season, I think coaches over the years have gotten smarter about that in terms of understanding where their players are, in terms of their physical capabilities, and whether it's injuries or just general fatigue from the season. I think that's a theme that you hear from a lot of coaches, both at the college and the high school level of, we start out and we're pretty intense and practices are pretty long in the preseason. And then as the season goes along, you taper it down with the understanding that a lot of it becomes mental and just making sure that you're fresh as you go into a game. Sure, go ahead. Absolutely. Quick. Yep.
So the one thing is I've kept a notebook of just ideas, thoughts. If there was something that we did in practice that I really liked and I did not want to forget, I would just go and I just jot it into my notebook. And so I have a ton of different ideas in there, whether it's how we're guarding post or how we're going to teach stunts. And, maybe this is for me whenever I try to go be my own head coach, or maybe that's for me for next year. is, oh crap, I forgot what we were doing. Let me make sure I remember. But the one thing that I realized, I just went back through and I read all of those ideas that I wrote down probably about 15 times throughout the year, because I wouldn't go back and read them. I would just jot them down.
Right.
I wish I would have watched more film at the high school level. I wish I would have watched more film at the high school level. And I wrote that down. I wish I would have watched more film with our guys. Things like that was the common theme that I kept writing down. And whether that's practice, whether that's individually with guys, and I understand time is tight, but I just feel that it was more beneficial for us to sit down and show you what you were doing wrong on film rather than take 15 extra reps on it on the floor. I just felt that we were able to do it. I watched a lot of film. I didn't watch enough with our guys whenever I was at the high school level, I feel like. After doing this every single day, and obviously we have all time to organize clips where we can take 4.5 hours of film, and we can condense that down into 8 minutes and still get our point across. But I just really think that if I were to go back and coach the high school level again, and that I would somehow find a way to watch more film.
So you think in your mind that watching and seeing, let's say, whether it's a mistake or something you did well, watching it on film would be more beneficial, especially as the season goes on, rather than spending and doing 15 actual reps on the floor and you just maybe saying and explaining, like, look, here's how we defended this screen. Here's how we should have defended it. Let's go over it 15 times. Instead, by showing it to them on the film where they can actually visually see what they did wrong or what they did right, might be more valuable in your mind based on the experience that you had this year. Is that what you're saying?
To a point. I don't think the physical reps are bad. I think
right. I understand.
Well, I just felt that, yes. So let's talk about however we're guarding, a screen. Let's say we're chasing a guy off a pin down screen, and we get caught trying to shoot the gap, and we do it wrong. Even if it turns out to be right, the guy doesn't score off of it. That's something in film that we can point out and say, hey, he doesn't score off of this, but you screwed this up. Hey, we got to fix this problem. You got to make sure you're going, you're chasing this guy around the screen. Don't get lazy on us here, or whatever we're going to say, just on the film. And then because, when you can see yourself do it and you can explain it if you're explaining it to Casey Korn, I hope that the other 18 guys, the other 13 guys in there are watching it. And just from being on a teaching side of things, when you're trying to teach the game of basketball, if you can find just the theme of the day of, hey guys, we are not in a stance defensively. We say we're in a stance. We think we're in a stance. We are not in a stance defensively. And so you pick up 5 clips from your practice, or you pick up 5 clips from your last game, and you say, guys, look, we are not in a stance. We have to be in a stance. And you show those a couple times, then we get out to the floor. Now, whenever I say, hey, you're not in a stance, that's in the back of their head. You know what? I just saw myself on film. Coach is right. I wasn't.
Yeah, you have their attention versus,
I think so.
Versus where if you're just, they're not seeing it on the film and all of a sudden you're saying it, it becomes much easier for the player in their mind to kind of think, what is coach talking about? I am in a stance. But when there's been visual evidence that's been provided to them, and then you come out with the coaching point, I would guess that probably their players are more receptive to that than they might have been if you're just saying it without having seen that visual evidence on the film. So I can definitely see where the benefit of taking your players through and being able to see those things can really help the process of how you get better. And ultimately that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to figure out what is the best method to help our team and each individual player be more successful. And by visually seeing those things, I think you're making it more concrete and making it easier for them to either change what they're doing wrong, or if they're doing something right, continue to repeat that and make it a habit.
And what you just said there, I think, was spot on, because we had a group that was very high IQ basketball-wise, and they understood, they've been in the system, and they knew what we were talking about, and they knew the terminology. So watching it on film for them, it clicked. You might have a group that needs to be on the floor doing all those reps, and that's the only way they're going to get it. And I absolutely think if that's the right thing for your team, I said it earlier, you got to know your guys. I think that too. I just don't know if I did a good enough job of showing film and giving them that opportunity whenever I was doing the high school gig.
Right. Well, obviously, whatever you guys did this year, you did very, very well.
If you're a basketball coach in the greater Cleveland area and you have a passion for teaching the game and might be interested in joining the Head Start Basketball Camp coaching staff this summer, please reach out to us via email at headstartbasketball@usa.net.
Talk about the tournament run and getting all the way to the championship game, which was the level that you guys got to last year, and then finally being able to close the deal. So kind of give us some highlights of the tournament run, and then let's get into the championship game and how it all came to end up with Oshkosh being crowned Division III national champs.
Well, at the Division III level, it has the most member schools of any of the levels. I think I'm going to be wrong here, but I'm close. There's around 448, give or take some, Division III schools that participate in basketball. I believe there's about 42. Let's see here. I think there's about 42-ish, maybe a little bit more, 44 automatic bids, somewhere in there. So if you win your conference tournament or however your conference chooses to get you into the tournament, whether it's winning the league or if you win your conference tournament like the Division I guys. So that leaves about 20 at-large spots. Well, we lost in our conference semifinals of our tournament. We went 13-1 through our conference, won the league outright for the first time in 40 years, and we came out and we didn't quite play to the level we needed to play in the conference semis, but we were in pretty good shape to get an at-large berth, which there's only around 20 schools nationwide at the Division III level to get at-large berths. Our conference was pretty good. We actually got 2 of them. So that says a lot about kind of our league. But the other crazy thing was we had how the Division III tournament works is there is a host school, which they consider, quote unquote, the 1 seed, and they give a host school, and then they bring other teams to that. And again, it's not set up like the Division I, where it's they set it up where these are all your 1s, these are all your 2s, these are all your 3s. They separate it across the country, kind of keep you in regions, trying to save a little bit of money of getting people to where they need to go. They'll bus you if it's 500 miles. If it's over a 500-mile trip, then they will put you on a plane. So they do their best to kind of keep you at the 500 miles.
Right.
Turns out our women's team was really good too. And so we should have hosted that first week. And, in all accounts, we had the resume to host that first week, but instead they put us on the road because our women were good enough that they got to host on the first week. It was a women's priority week. So going through, we earned the right to be able to host, and we just figured we'd be road warriors because our women did a great job this season as well. And so we got to go to Minnesota, and we played Lake Forest in that first round, and it was a team that we played a couple of the Midwest Conference, a couple of the other teams in their league, so we had an idea of where they were at, and we played a pretty good one to open it up, and just winning that first one is kind of get the monkey off your back, and you're worried about it, and it turns out in the other game there was a little bit of an upset. The host school who hosted instead of us lost to a good Northwestern St. Paul team who shot the lights out of the basketball in both games. In their game and the game they played against us, they could really shoot the ball. But, we were able to get through there and advance to the Sweet 16. And to realize how hard that is the defending champion and the number 1 ranked team in the nation lost in that round. And so that actually allowed us to host the Sweet 16 game. And we brought in a really good Loris team. We played them in the Sweet 16 game. Loris had already beaten Nebraska Wesleyan, who was the number 1 team in the nation, and then Augustana, who also at one period of time was the number 1 team in the nation. And so they knocked off both of those teams at some period of time. So Loris was a really good basketball team, senior heavy, had some really good guards. And we were we got in foul trouble early in that game. We didn't quite execute the game plan. We preach a lot about keeping hands off people and not gambling and not reaching for the ball. And we were a little bit undisciplined in some of those aspects. We were a little late on some of our movements and got a little bit, like I said, undisciplined. I talked about one of our kids coming off the bench and kind of really giving us a spark and some energy. But in the second half, we hit some shots that were big shots for us. The Elite Eight game, again at home, the place was packed. We got a really big, nice gym in Oshkosh, and it was as crowded as I've ever seen it and as loud as I've ever heard it.
What's the feeling like? I'm going to interrupt you for a second. What's the feeling like on campus at that point? You get a big crowd, but is there a buzz going through the student body? What's it like walking around the campus during the time when you're hosting those two games?
There absolutely was. The Friday night game, we had a really great crowd, students. We had a really good student crowd, more than we've had, through any of the games. The community started to come out. It was crazy. The other WEAC schools, we would see some of their regulars that they just wanted to watch good basketball, and they were coming out. So there was definitely a buzz. It was hard because you would have people stop by your office. And this is the beautiful thing about being on the road. If I'm on the road, leave on Wednesday night, I'm sitting in my hotel room doing work. I have nobody that is going to come bother me really for any reason unless it's, team related. On campus now, you've got guys in class that are going to class still, which is a good thing.
Right.
But they're still going to class and they're hearing about, oh yeah, you guys win these two and you're back to the Final Four. How great! It's going to be so much fun going back to the Final Four. I got professors and other guys coming to my office or seeing me in the hallway and saying, Coach, great job. Things are going really, well for you. You get these two games at home. I'm coming to Fort Wayne. We're coming to the Final Four. It's like, whoa, slow your.
Yeah, hey, we're not there. We're not there yet. Slow down.
Yeah. Long way to go. So yes, there was definitely an excitement on campus, and it was a fun atmosphere to be around. It was honestly terrifying. Like, what isn't the right word, but like we were very worried. They haven't done it. So Oshkosh, we've made the tournament the last 4 years, and obviously every year it's been on the road. Last year they went 3 straight weekends on the road, and so this is the first time hosting. And, you're hosting a Sweet 16 and possibly an Elite Eight game. And so, people, oh, yeah, well, I can't make it Friday, but I'm coming Saturday. So stop. Like, what? I don't even know Saturday exists right now. So there was definitely a buzz, but we were trying to, do everything that we could to eliminate any of the distractions. So there was definitely a positive to it. But there could have been some negatives if we, allowed the hype to get to us. But, yeah, it was an exciting time.
So you get it done, and then you get to the Final Four, and obviously we talked a little bit about the Wheaton game and trying to slow Francis down, and you, like I said earlier, you held him down 1 point less than he got on you the first time.
To take a quick step back, on the Elite Eight game, our two senior guards that shoot the ball over 40% from behind the line, I believe they were combined 0 for 11 in that Elite Eight game. And it just tells you a testament to what we had going, is that we were able to win that game with two of our leading scorers. I think together they averaged 30-something points. I'm pretty sure they scored 13 together in that game.
Wow.
And so, we escaped. We got through that one. We had a nice lead, and in Guilford, man, they just kept coming back, and they just fought and fought and fought. And they had just a really nice post player. But anyway, so we get through that one. We're excited to get back to the Final Four, and you could just see it on some of our guys' faces. Like, this is part of our goal. We know how hard it is. All these other top teams didn't make it. Everyone expected us to make it, and we're able to make it. And it wasn't as easy as maybe it looks like from the outside. Oh, these guys went to the championship game last year, because there was a lot of work that these kids put in, and I couldn't be prouder of them for making it. But with that being said, we knew our work was still ahead of us. There's still more to accomplish. And so we had a good game plan against Wheaton, we thought, and the guys executed it really well. We knocked down some shots, moved the ball around. Fravor knocked down a bunch of shots early, and then, they took away him, and then Boots got hot, they took away him, and Flynn got it going. So we had a really good team effort in that game. And, so now you sit back on two teams that you've never seen play live before, and we had a good idea about them going in. Just a couple of the other assistant coaches spent their week focusing on those two games or those two teams, just so whenever we walked out, they gave us the crash course. And Dylan Wirtz, one of our volunteer assistants, gave us a crash course, and we were ready to go. And we stayed up till, I don't know if I slept in 3 weeks. It was very limited when it came to that. We were up till 5, I think, that night, and back up at 8 to go, or 9 to go eat breakfast. And we had a shoot around and went over everything. And then we got a little time to take a nap. And whenever the game hit, there's something to be said about the looseness of our guys. And I know some people would agree and some people would disagree. But we had music going, and they were singing in the locker room, and we kept our normal routine, and we were smiling and having a good time, and knowing that we were going to go out there and compete, but we weren't scared of the moment. And we did. We went out there, and Jack Flynn was unbelievable. And by the way, we thought he broke his wrist. We came back, and he had a big wrist cast on. He's like, "Yeah, I got to go back to the doctor, coach. I think I broke my wrist." "Yeah, what'd you do? How'd you break your wrist?" He goes, "Oh, and 5 minutes into the game or whatever it was, I fell down and landed on my hand." And he goes, "Yeah, I felt it then, but the adrenaline just took over." It's like, holy cow! If you played 30 minutes in the national championship game on a broken wrist and scored 33 points, you're unbelievable. You're good. But
he's like LeBron with that cast after the finals.
I was gonna say, did he punch a whiteboard after?
Yeah, there was no whiteboard punching. There was no, not with Jack Flynn. There's no whiteboard punching. Maybe a couple bear hugs afterwards.
There you go.
But there was no whiteboard punching. But we battled in that game, and we felt like we were in control. But you never know, because all of a sudden they hit a couple shots. They had a couple real. Again, when you get to that level, every team you're playing is really good. But all of a sudden we started to extend the lead there late in the first half, and you look up and we have a good sizable lead, and there's 2 minutes left to go, and all of a sudden you let yourself drift a little bit. It's like, holy cow! Like I think this actually happened. I think we did it. Yeah. And all of a sudden our subs come in, and we get our guys the standing O, and bear hugs and tears, and just excitement all the way around. And it's a moment that, again, when you go back and you look back on it, you'll remember. Like, I'm talking about it right now, and I got a big smile on my face.
Right.
I can remember, and it's not necessarily me. I can remember the look on Ben Boots' face when he came out of the game and giving the let's go to the crowd, or Jack Flynn giving me a hug and telling me how much he loves me and how much he's so happy that I joined the staff. Things like that were just memories that, again, I'll have forever. But I can see their faces and just the excitement on all those faces. And, the funny thing is that Jason Price, who was in at the end of the game and hadn't played very many minutes all year, and we were talking at shoot around today when they were getting shots up, and he was just kind of bouncing the ball, kind of a point guard position for us. And like, hey, you're going to be in at the end of the game. So let's work on this a little bit. And so I said, we got to work on dribbling out the clock. And so we goofed around about that with the end of shoot around. And afterwards, again, with a big hug, he goes, "Coach, you told me I was doing it. I didn't screw it up. I did it right." I said, "Yeah, man, yes, you did. It was awesome." Like, we were joking about those moments. And it's just, again, there's a connection now. Again, Matt had that connection with those guys, recruiting them and knowing them. And the guys would always have a connection. But there's just kind of this extra, we won a national championship. It's going to force us to get together in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And the stories that are going to come from it are the things that I'm most excited about. And sure, my intro sounded a little bit better today with national champion. And my buddy called me up the other day and was like, "Hey, Casey, national championship or champion Korn, how you doing? I was like, dude, he goes, I'm going to introduce you every time I talk to you.
Your friend's gonna save you on their phone as national champion Casey Korn. That's the question.
Absolutely. So they were joking with me about that. They're like, have you come down off that cloud yet? And I was like, man, we're starting to come down a little bit, but it's we understand how hard it is. And sure, we're going to have a good team again next year. We got a lot of those same guys coming back, and we got a lot of new pieces coming in. And so we're really excited about the future, but we understood about how special this is and how hard it is. Don't get me wrong. We're going to sit back and we're going to try to go out and we're going to try to do everything we can to get back there again. But sometimes these things don't happen very often. My first year ever coaching.
I know you're talking about how everything's gonna like kind of you're starting to come down. What do you think is going to be like that opening night next year? Like your first game back on the floor. You know, I'm assuming they'll have some kind of ceremony before the game. What will that be like for you guys, do you think?
That's a great question. You know, hopefully our guys are locked in. I know our first game next year is we're going to, I think it's our first game. We're going to go play Augustana, who for the most part of last year was ranked number 1 or 2 in the nation. So we better be locked in pretty darn
Better
quick.
be ready to go right off the bat.
Better be ready to go from the opening tip. But you know, I just think that being around, I think it's brought. There was already plenty of eyes on the program, but I think it brought a different set of eyes, another set of eyes on the program. And you know, I can sit here and I could tell you for 35 minutes of how proud I am of Matt, of what he did in his first year as a head coach. But more importantly is just how much I learned from him. You know, which probably isn't an easy thing to do, is to coach up, you know, one of your buddies, somebody that is the same age as you, that you've known for 10 years in your life in a different setting, in a setting where we're playing golf and we're, you know, going to baseball games, not coaching a work setting, but the way he was able to communicate with these guys and get them to believe and get them to understand how talented they are and what they needed to do is something that, again, my black book of notes has a lot of things of the things that Matt did really, really well that, you know, not necessarily I'll emulate, but things that I got to make sure that I can do better moving forward. And obviously there's things in that book that I said, hey, I am absolutely not doing this. And that's good. That's how you learn. And that's how you do.
Yeah, I love the whole sort of timeline of what you've said tonight, in that, you know, it obviously ended with the outcome that if you guys could have sat down back in September and you and Matt are talking and you're saying, where do we want this season to end up? What do we want the outcome to be? Obviously national champions would have been the goal and would have been what you put down on paper. And yet, as we went through this whole story tonight, there were all these moments and relationships and things that happened along the way that are part of the process. And those are things that you're going to remember. Those are things that brought you joy throughout the season. Those are challenges that you faced. And ultimately, that process is really what it's all about. And the outcome eventually took care of itself, and it's obviously the one you wanted. But like any coach, like any athlete, like any person, you get to an outcome and life continues after that. And the Oshkosh program continues after this. And now you got to turn it around and come back and try to do it all over again. And if the only thing that made you happy was the outcome, it wouldn't be a very enjoyable experience. And from everything that you said tonight, it's obvious to me that the process for you was as much fun as the eventual outcome.
Absolutely. And from day one, I've enjoyed being part of Oshkosh basketball. And Matt understood when he brought me on that it would be, you know, a little bit of a challenge, a little bit different thinking. I've not been a true motion coach ever. You know, I coached pack line at one period of time, but you know, I changed because I thought that at the high school level we did some really good things, but all of a sudden 5 minutes were left to go in the game, and I had to change a little bit what we were going to do because we were down by 7 or 8. Now all of a sudden we got to go out and completely change our identity, and that's a topic that we can talk about at a different time. But he challenged me to really think and provide input, and that's something always looking to grow as a coach. And I felt like I found my niche. It took a little bit, and I really do. And I think as the years go on, if he'll continue to have me back, or if this is where I end up, I'm happy with that. He also knows that down the road that I will also be looking for opportunities, and you keep your eyes open, but the best time to ever look is whenever you have a great situation in front of you. It would make it really, really hard to walk out knowing what we have and knowing the bond that me and Matt have. But the bond that I've gathered with the players and their families, the other people on staff, is undescribable, about how they welcomed, a brand new guy into this whole successful piece. And they made me feel like I've been here, like I helped build it. I didn't. I walked in here this year, and I hope I added enough for this program, but I didn't. I was not on the ground floor. I did not help take over this job whenever they were 0 whatever it was in conference the year before they took over. And so I've been talking with Matt through it. He'd vent to me a couple times, and we talked, but that was not the piece. I do have a fun little thing is whenever I took over for this position in Matt's office, which now is my office, on the whiteboard 6 years ago, he wrote, "If you don't think," and I'm going to get this wrong because it's so faded, I don't read it every day. But if you don't believe that we are going to win a national champion, or we can win a national championship, please get out of my office. And he had that written up on his whiteboard, and apparently it's been up there for 6 years. And when I took over, he's like, "You can do whatever you want to this office. That does not leave." And so, okay, well, that doesn't leave. And so we get back on Sunday, and we're picking things up, and that's the thing you don't remember is we got 35 bags and waters, and everyone's excited, and there's news crews there, and we got this welcome back party, and me and the assistant coaches and the couple managers who we have, who by the way are unbelievable. They saved so much time and effort for us. They were the real MVPs of the team. But we're carrying all these bags around these news crews and waters and just putting all this stuff away. And so while we're doing that, the next thing you know, I don't look at my office at all. I come into work on Monday morning, and Matt wrote on that board, "Now we hunt another one." And so the vision's still there, is to kind of be an elite program at the Division III level. But we understand it's a relationship business, and it's the part that I really enjoy about it. I love the strategy, but I really enjoy getting to know people.
All right, let's wrap things up, Casey, with one final question for you. Can you share sort of an insider story that maybe people outside of the team, if there are fans of Oshkosh basketball that are listening, a funny story, an interesting story, something that happened behind the scenes that maybe people aren't aware of that happened during the season? Can you think of a story that fits that description?
Absolutely. So there's five gentlemen on staff, and so you have Matt, and then myself, and I mentioned Ben Stelzer, who works with us as a part-time assistant, full-time, part-time, I guess you could call it.
Right.
Dylan Wirtz is another younger guy. He played for Matt in his first couple years, and he works in a bank near town, and he is absolutely 100% bought in. His dad's a local high school coach, a very, very successful high school coach in the area, and just his sister's a college coach. His other sister's playing at Green Bay, Milwaukee. So, basketball just runs through his veins, and so he's all in. But the other guy we have, Greg Yankee, Chief is what we call him, and he was the teacher for 44 years, and we call him Chief because apparently he didn't know when he was teaching, he didn't always remember everyone else's name, and so
you called him Chief?
Call everybody Chief.
I used to have I had a principal at my school that he would call me. He called me Chief for like a year and a half. He's like, "Hey, Chief." I'm like, "I don't think this guy knows my name." So
it's exactly the reason. That is why it happened. So that's
awesome.
He's the mayor. of Appleton, Oshkosh, the Fox Valley area that we're in. And he loves recruiting. But anyway, Chief sits on, and he kind of handles some of the fouls and the timeouts. Well, early in the year, we're again working on our roles as assistant coaches. Matt's taken over for the first time, where he gets to stand and pace and do his thing, and I'm kind of handling the substitutions and kind of relaying different things that we're talking about for Matt. Well, Chief's in charge again, fouls and timeouts, and Matt wants quick answers. He wants things quick, and so he's intense. So he turns around for about 15 games straight, and he just keeps asking, Chief, any foul trouble? And Chief had to go up and down the sheet, and he's like, Chief, let's go. Like, we only get a couple seconds to make these subs, and nothing. And, Chief, how many timeouts do we have? How many timeouts do we have? And Chief, he'd kind of be looking, how many timeouts do we have? Three, and we caught him off guard a couple times. And so finally, Chief had enough of it. And not really, he's again, wonderful, and he's the glue of what we got. So he went out, and he went to Kinko's, bought the nicest paper that he could, printed big white numbers on yellow cards, got them laminated and flipped. And so we now have timeout cards. So he just lays them at his feet. And so whenever we need to know how many timeouts they are, instead of he looks at Chief, and he wants to yell at Chief, Chief, how many? And it's just sitting there in big numbers. And so now Matt can't yell at Chief about how many
That's
anymore.
good.
So
that's awesome.
It took about 15 games, and Chief's like, man, I'm going to do that. And then right before the tournament run, he gets these cards made up, and you keep seeing it. He wants to turn around. How many times? And he just sees it, and he just shuts his mouth. He turns around, and he goes back to the game. They were the best thing that Chief brought to the table. We'd never actually admit to him. Chief, what are you doing with these cards? You got to be kidding me. But he's shutting that up there pretty quick when it comes to that, and Matt loves it. So now we just give him trouble about making cards. But
I think I know what I would do with the number 1 card is I would put it up in the trophy case right next to the Division III National Championship trophy. That thing should hang in the trophy case.
The problem is then he'd have to go make new cards for next year.
That's true. That
was a lot of work for Chief, and I hope he listens to this. I'm going to make sure he hears this part. But he was very proud of those cards. But no, that was just a blast of us working together. Was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, Casey Korn, national champion. Congratulations. Congratulations to your kids. Congratulations to Matt. Congratulations to Chief. Congratulations to Ben. Congratulations to everybody who's been a part of the journey to a national championship. We're thankful that we got an opportunity to share it with you vicariously at the beginning of the season, and then to have you go on and be able to win a national title and then be gracious enough to come back on and share the experience with us. We can't thank you enough. And again, I'm sure we'll talk at some point again in the future and have you on one more time, but thank you. We can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. Anytime. I appreciate what you guys do. I listen to all the podcasts, and I just really enjoy what you guys have put together here in this short period of time.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We're going to keep trying to bang them out. We recorded our 100th episode immediately preceding this one with you. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great ride for us. And to everyone out there, we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.
Head Start Basketball's Player Development Academy offers Cleveland area players a unique opportunity to improve their basketball skills. Regardless of a player's age, skill level, or position, training with Head Start Basketball will elevate your game to the next level. Do you want to improve your ball handling, become a better shooter, or develop into a more skilled, confident player? Our Academy classes offer training that's designed to do just that. Our training sessions are innovative and will have you learning skills that are transferable to actual games. We have 4 different class skill levels for boys and girls, ages 4 and up. All Player Development Academy classes will be held at the Strongsville Recreation Center. For more information or to get registered, please visit www.headstartbasketball.com.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.